And then, oh, the other thing is when you flip between who's talking, making sure you're up and I'm up.
Ah, okay. I will. Yay, I think we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our second installment of the Higher Ed Social list of webinars for this summer. We're super, super excited to have an amazing guest presenter for you today. Erin Sapinka, she is the social media manager at Dartmouth College that HubSpot recently named the second best college Instagram out there, and she is the guru behind it. So I'm super excited for her to talk to you guys today. She's going to give you lots of great tips and tricks and her secrets for making a rocking Instagram. If you have any questions, let us know. Erin, take it away.
Okay. Let me put myself up so I can see myself. So, like already mentioned, I manage Dartmouth's main social accounts, Instagram included. When I started a little under 2 years ago, we had an Instagram following of a little over 7,000 people. In the 2 years that I've been here, we've grown it to now 23,000. Our engagement rate is an average of 1%, depending on the time of year and month. Obviously, things around home aging, and everyone's always excited to give love. Versus maybe a downtime during the academic year. So kind of the two things that I really want to go over today are the tools that I use, but then also the tools that don't cost you any money to track and keep a hold of everything. And then kind of how we engage on the platform ourselves. And that's my favorite part. If you look at our feed, which actually I'm going to try and screen share real fast. So if you look at our feed, you can see that all of our images are a collected color. Ooh, there we go. Where'd it go? A mix of colorful images from all around campus. A lot of them are student submitted, which is great. We ask that people tag us in our photos, and I'm not afraid to share all of the images that students are sending us. So like this is from a student, from a student, from a student, from a student. And so what we've really developed, which I've seen which I don't think is unique to us, but this idea of being Insta famous on our campus. And so people really strive to be featured on our account. And what you get is you get a series of images that are collected at times of the day that maybe you're not there, you're not in. So for instance, here's a Dartmouth egg that someone dyed at Easter. And so you weren't in that person's home as they created their Easter eggs for the year, and that was from a prospective student. So very excited. And so what you see is not only do you get people excited about their images being shared, but then all of their friends come and start engaging on that photo. And so you see a huge spike of followers. You see a huge spike in comments when it's a student. So like you can see some of this has 33 comments versus 5 comments. Not that our college photographers are not incredible. They're amazing, amazing photographers. But whenever you share it from a student's perspective, you get all this weigh-in from their friends, from their own network, which it just drives up your engagement. Plus, you don't have to search for content. You just troll and kind of look along the Dartmouth College or whatever hashtag that you promote on your Instagram page, looking for content that really fits the age. Really focus on at Dartmouth is if you look at it, I mentioned colorful, and so you'll see a lot of lifestyle brands, a lot of other brands on Instagram that are really focusing on creating image in a way that shows the brand or shows a certain aesthetic without it being in your face. So you don't necessarily see all of these branded with Dartmouth. Here's a big Dartmouth green or something along those lines. Like here's one of the few mentions of where you can actually see a Dartmouth brand in an image. Otherwise, and for instance, in the photos where you see the colors from the athletic uniforms, you want your brand to sing throughout the images without it being so blatantly your brand. You want it to be an honest representation, which is another great reason why you those images. So when someone studying like this image here, this is actually what they see outside the library versus, okay, here's a photo that we went and staged someone in the greenhouse working. This happens all the time, but you can obviously see a difference between this image and this image. And so that's a huge key to our success, is that these students have been able to contribute their content and then get 1,000+ likes to fame that is associated with it. We have great content, and it's just another awesome way to keep your Instagram page lively, colorful, and a really good depiction of what's happening on your campus. The other thing that I like to bring up here, which is something that I learned from a really awesome person who does social media at St. Lawrence University, Meg Kenningston, and she has a really popular student-run Instagram account, as well as several other things. And one of the most mind-blowing things that I ever heard from one of her presentations was that time to make students aware of the professional development opportunities that came behind it. And although we're not quite there with just sharing images from people's accounts, we're making sure my summer interns this year, which I'm getting some, yay! Before it's just been me, and so I'm really excited to get some young students into the office to help with content creation and to find these moments already out there. But she made sure to thank every person that contributed to the overall Instagram account or the blog or whatever. And whether what we're looking at doing is printing out the little 4x4, 6x6 typical Instagram, sending it to the students' inbox on campus. And then ideally it'll include a fact about it. So obviously for the one that is most liked, we'll say your Instagram has received the most likes out of any other Instagram or on our account. Or your Instagram is most commented on any other account. So not only are we saying like, hey, thanks for letting us do this, but here's how you contributed overall. So kind of adding more value to that Insta fame. So going beyond the, oh, I got featured on the Dartmouth College Instagram, to the, okay, now we're like, wow, this is kind of really cool. I got 23,000 or 2,300 likes, whereas normally the average photo gets 1,000 or 1,200, depending on the time that we send the thank you. And so by adding that, I'm really adding another element to our program with Instagram, is the real life connection. I think we get lost in this world of in real life versus online, and that line is no longer there. Your real life is also your life online. And so anytime that we can bring what people are doing on our digital spaces into a real life physical space so that they can see, one, raise awareness, get more attention for their awesome work, I really jump on it. And so we're trying to we're brainstorming some opportunities or installment on campus that potentially will get all the photos printed and kind of display them. I think Boston College did a really great exhibit, is Boston 360 or something along those lines, BU 360, that they displayed a bunch of images from that hashtag. And so we're looking at things along those lines. But that's another reason why I think our program is so successful, is that we really focus on making sure the person is appreciated. And we're looking to expand that even past just the thanks for letting us share your incredible photo, tagging them in it, giving them total credit over the image. We're looking at making that just a little bit more involved so that we continue to get these awesome photos and people striving to be a part of this that we have running on the Instagram account. And then, so tools, I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with the lack of analytics that Instagram gives, and those of you that do purchase tools are frustrated by the lack of information on reach, the lack of information about what your audience demographic is made up of. And the good news is that I'm sure everyone has seen business profiles rolling out that will give you access to this information. There isn't a whole lot of info out about it, just some screenshots of what it'll look like. The blog on Instagram's page did mention that they're looking to be rolled out in the US in the coming months. I always get depressed when I see that, because that's such it's not a hard deadline. So I have no idea when I'm going to be getting that or when we'll have access to that. And what is the process of transferring to a business account look like? Do we lose any features? Do we lose certain awareness because now we're listed as a business and maybe our stuff doesn't show up as organically? So there's a lot of unanswered questions out there about that, but it is exciting that Instagram is finally looking at the analytic platform. We do use Sprout, and we also use Pro Iconosquare. I really like Iconosquare. They did a huge remodel. I remember, if everyone will remember, last year, maybe 2 years now, when they kind of just overnight turned it into a paid model and kind of totally upset the entire Instagram universe. They did a lot of user testing and trying things out, and eventually rolled out a paid model, and then now have rolled out a redesigned version of that paid model, which is, I think, really a wonderful tool. So I just wanted to take you quickly through ours real fast, which actually you guys were seeing a little bit of it already. So this is obviously what your feed looks like, but then here's the really great part of what we use here. Is the overview. You can see a bunch of stuff, top media, total followers, total followings, total likes received, and you can change the different time periods. So like here you can see over last 7 days, yesterday, this week. And the other nice part of this, which is something that Iconosquare did not have before this paid model, is, while it reloads, is that you have the ability to download some of this information. Not everything is downloadable, and there are limits, which is mostly, I think, due to Instagram's API. But what you can see is you can download this gained and lost followers. You can look at the community of what your community looks like in growth and other things. So who are your lost followers? Is there anyone here that you're surprised about? People that maybe you want to reach out to again and see if there's a way that you can gain their trust back and following. So all the typical stuff that anyone that was familiar with Iconosquare before is available, just in a nicer visual, and also downloadable, which I think is the huge selling point of this. So you can see we're a huge fan of the normal filter. I don't do much editing, if any, to any of the photos that we receive, especially ones that we take ourselves, unless I need to brighten them up or do a little bit. I try to take them as authentically as possible. That being said, students do edit theirs, so you will see that sometimes their photos are a more edited version of what actually happened, which is fine. Again, it's a student thing. It's a student image, so I like to leave the lines a little more blurred there. And then so you can see engagement and best times to post. And so I really do like Pro Iconosquare. I think it's really been helpful. This is also how I pull all of the images. I don't use any sort of regramming app. I'm not sure if it directly helps anything, but I really do believe, I like keeping a very uniform look on Instagram. So I don't like kind of moving away from what we've branded as our Instagram account on Instagram. And so that's why I don't use any regram apps. And that's actually how I grab the images, is I grab them from Iconosquare, I grab them from another free service, and I upload them as our own page, and I don't do the little kind of retweet sign with their username. I do all of the attributing in the actual image, so I tag them, and then I also make sure right in the caption, usually it's either the first thing or the very second thing that's written about the photo, is that it's the camera emoji or something along the lines of incredible photo or amazing shot by so-and-so. Thank you so much for letting us share this image. Interested in being featured, make sure to tag your photos Dartmouth College or tag us in them so we make sure to see them. We love sharing your photos, or we want to make sure that we catch them. People DM us, and so that's something. I set up a social.media@dartmouth.edu account because I'm a firm believer in kind of the mystery behind the curtain. And so instead of revealing who I am, I just have them go to a social.media@Dartmouth address that they can send images to. This is useful because I do get a lot of privately shared images that I can't see, but I'm very open and I say, we don't follow them and their account is private. We'd love to see the image. If you want to send it to social.media@dartmouth.edu, or if you want to approve us following you, we're more than happy to. And so I get a mix of people letting us follow them and a mix of things being emailed. What also helps is that when people send them to the email address, we get the higher version of it usually, and so I can use it more easily across multiple channels without it looking too grainy. But that's just an added benefit of reaching out that way. The other thing that we really I focus on anyway, is keeping track of what we're doing. And so this is So Iconosquare does cost money, Sprout Social does cost money, but the things that don't cost money that I use every day in managing Instagram and before we purchased Iconosquare and Sprout Social was If This Then That recipes and Zapier recipes. And so this has been really useful in tracking. One, I can build out a sheet without doing much of anything of what our content looked like. So every time I set up a recipe, so every single time we posted an image, it would pull the image into a Dropbox folder. It would pull the caption, the date, the time into a Google spreadsheet. And so at the end of the month when I was doing my analysis, I was able to just go in and look and see, okay, update the likes and comments on each of these images. And then that way, I had a sheet that was already pre-populated with most of the information, and it was really easy for me to quickly add up once I plugged in all the likes and comments manually what that was.
That's awesome.
With our engagement, and yeah.
That's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about more about what If This Then That is, if for the people who maybe haven't heard of it before?
I most certainly can. I have to screen share again. Everyone's going to be so familiar with my screen share. Wait, come back. Okay. Start screen share. Okay. So right now, this is in my Google Drive. But so If This Then That is if something happens, then this happens. And so I totally nerd out and set up a bunch of stuff for this. I actually have a Google Calendar that pulls in all the stories that are posted to our news site, all of my tweets that I post, all of my Instagrams, and all of my Facebooks posts that I plop into a Google Calendar so that I can keep track of when we posted stuff month over month. And so so for instance, our commencement is next weekend. We're a little later than everyone else, but I'll be able to track how we post stuff during that weekend. So next year when we're revisiting, we can attribute, okay, this story did a lot better when it was posted at 2 p.m. versus when we published it at 10 a.m. or something. So that's really helpful. That's one of my favorite uses. But so, oh, sorry. I'm doing it again. So what you can see here is there's a bunch of options. I personally have my Instagram, Twitter, Google Drive, Bitly, Pocket from Firefox, so that every time I put something in Pocket, it makes me a Trello board as a please remember to read this so that I can share it as resources later. You can track hashtags this way. So if you have a big campaign coming up, it's your commencement. I do Twitter, follow hashtag Dartmouth16s, and Google Sheets so that I keep track of every single mention that is on that hashtag. Instagram did allow you to do that. If This Then That sent out an email a couple of weeks ago after Instagram tweaked their app and their visual identity that Instagram had also tweaked their API and saying that they would no longer be able to track images or run recipes that pulled stuff from certain things. And so one of them was the hashtag on Instagram. However, I did use it as late as this weekend and earlier this week for a wedding that I was in. And so it still worked fine. I'm not sure if it's something that's going to change, but that's something that I used all the time, is to get all of the content that's being used on. So when it was Dartmouth Homecoming or during our commencement, so I could say, here's the amount of images that we collected. Even if it was not even looking at the content, it was let's just see how many uses were used publicly on Facebook or on Instagram and Twitter. And so that was really useful. It has been really useful. And the other version of this is Zapier, which you can get there are different levels of it. So we sprung for a basic plan, which I think is only a couple of dollars a month, but allows us a little bit more in-depth options for our recipe building. And so you can see this one right away is I'm having our Instagram pull Dartmouth16s to a Google Sheet. So anytime someone Instagram's using that, I get a link to the photo, I get a caption, I get the username, I get the time it was posted, so that we can keep track of it just overall. And then that way I can see how it's doing, how things are working with it, make sure that I'm capturing everything that's happening. It's also really useful for listening stuff. So if you don't have the ability to listen on information, or there's a hashtag that you want to track that maybe has negative coverage, I also use it for this too, just so I can keep a general idea of what's happening.
I would imagine,
love,
I'm sorry. I think you're freezing there for a minute. So I would imagine this would be amazing for departments where their social media team is really small, or they don't have access to a team of interns to track content and watch what's being posted. This basically does it for you, and then you can go in and monitor it, but it's going to plop them all in where you could actually see it. That is awesome. And we'll definitely provide a list of those if this, then that recipes at the end, so that way everybody can grab it. Ramona wants to ask the advantages of being anonymous versus signing your posts or outright revealing your wizard. Are you always anonymous? Are you always the voice of Dartmouth? How does that work?
I am always the voice of Dartmouth. I never reveal who I am. I mean, if you go to my Twitter bio, you'll see that I have run social for Dartmouth. And when I meet students, I do introduce myself as what I do, but it's kind of fun. I went and I Snapchatted one of our videos shoots that we were on, and it was our maple sugaring operation on our organic farm down the street. And so I was Snapchatting from it, and someone in the house was like, "Oh my God, someone's here Snapchatting us. Like, who is it?" And I got to hide and just pretend that it wasn't me for a little bit. And it was actually really exciting to see people excited about someone being there. And so once I kind of introduced myself, I interviewed them and stuff like that on Snap. But it's just nice being anonymous because I'm not impeding on anything. And I do eventually mention to people like, "Oh, I'm going to share this on social. Is that all right?" or whatever. But I let the organic moments happen in front of me instead of kind of right away introducing like, "Hi, I'm here to live tweet this event," or "I'm here to take your picture and Instagram it in 10 minutes. I kind of just let the moments happen, and then when it's appropriate, I introduce myself. I do like to be behind the curtain just as a personal reason because I live so socially and I'm always engaged social media wise. It's just fun to be kind of anonymous behind it instead of synonymously being associated with the Dartmouth brand. I think that's a personal preference, but I also see it pay off whenever I am just interacting in a moment, and instead of people thinking like, "Oh, I gotta look good for this Instagram," or "Hold on, let me like position myself just right for this photo." It's just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna snap a photo. I'm gonna snap a couple of things," and then because I am a stickler for how I look in photos, always am like, "Oh, do you like this one? Okay, we'll Instagram that one." Or so I eventually reveal who I am, but 9 times out of 10, if it's an online interaction, I'm just starting with social media. They don't know how many there are of me. There's only 1, 2, who knows? And I always use we, the royal we.
Okay.
Who is just Erin, but it's a we.
That's awesome. And I think that probably really speaks to some of the golden rules of social media in general, or the golden rules of YouTube, that content really should be relatable or funny or interesting and informative, and that's going to be the content that's going to resonate with your viewers. They really want that organic experience of, this is exactly what we're doing, and this is unscripted. It's not reality TV. It is actual reality as it's happening. And then not only are your students more excited to be in it, but they're probably more excited to share, which then in turn looks great for your brand, because this is not shiny admissions brochure Dartmouth. This is all the fun we get to have every day. Picture yourself here with us, which in turn helps promote the brand, which is really awesome.
Yep.
That's exciting. So Megan is saying that she posts anonymously, but when her students do takeovers, she has them sign their post. Do you use students doing takeovers at all?
We have not done student takeovers on our accounts yet. That's something we're working toward, but I'm getting my first batch of student interns this summer. So I'm excited to see, and by batch I mean 2, but I'm excited to see where it takes us. But I do have what we've seen working really well is that instead of doing a takeover on Instagram, it's featuring students, and so we like that has done better for us than some of the student takeover stuff that we've dabbled in on other brand accounts, stuff like that. And so what we think will be where we'll do most student takeovers is Snapchat, which allows more of this is literally what I'm doing today. Here's me walking to the food court, or here's me walking across campus. And so that's where we'll see, I think, more of our student takeovers. On Instagram, whenever it is a student photo, I always attribute, and I always ask permission. When people tag us in the photo, I'm pretty sure that people are saying, we want you to share this, but it's just a good opportunity to just have a relationship there and say, like, oh, are you okay with us sharing this? Like, we'll totally give you credit. And then they say, yeah, totally. Or sometimes I don't hear back from people. And so then I don't share it, because who knows? It could be they don't check their Instagram feed very much, but it also could be that they would prefer to remain not featured. And so I do ask permission for the features. With student takeovers, they will introduce themselves, because part of the allure to that is, who are you? How do I relate to you? Oh, you're from Maine? I'm also from Maine. Or, oh, I'm also interested in studying neuroscience. And so I think that's a really important loss of anonymous, I can't say that. Being anonymous there is way more valuable than not revealing the source. And so student takeovers will totally be identified. But when it's just me, a social media manager in the Office of Communications, I prefer to just be Dartmouth.
That's awesome. So when you're looking at, I totally just blanked on my train of thought there. So with sorry. Okay, so we talked about the wizard behind the curtain. You mentioned that when you repost someone's things, you download it and then re-upload it to Instagram, so it doesn't have that tag on there of the repost. I would assume that probably because you're asking permission, that really also would help with any sort of like copyright issues, or people being mad that you stole their post, or any sort of shadiness, like, oh my gosh, the Big Brother is watching my Instagram and they're snatching my stuff. So that seems to be a really great way of kind of stemming that concern, that not only am I asking permission, but you're also going to get tagged, you're also going to get featured with all of that. So that is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, like I said, to open up a conversation and a relationship. And instead of just posting it and it kind of being a complete surprise, I think the surprise comes from us actually seeing it and sharing it, or deciding amongst all the ones that we have liked or commented on that this is one that we want to share. That being said, I am very active in the space. One, as a user, just watching best practices, but also in our community. A lot of our growth comes from me just kind of lurking around on the Dartmouth College, Dartmouth hashtags. And so the other thing that was a really huge boost to our following is that around early admissions and regular decisions when they went out, anytime someone posted related to Dartmouth College, Dartmouth 20s, Dartmouth 2020, class of 2020s, we were monitoring those. And every time someone posted using it, we made sure to at least go in and like it. The engagement role is super duper important with Instagram, because you're taking notice. I mean, it's one of the platforms that you can still do the one-on-one communications, and people posted pictures of our acceptance letters, and like it would be amongst 3 or 4 other ones, and we made sure to go in and say, that one on the left corner, that's our favorite, or you're going to look great in green, and then using the hashtag, because one, it raised awareness of the hashtag, but it also, we were the only school that went in and commented on these posts. We were the only school to like some of these posts. And so if you're not doing that, that's something that immediately increases your following. You have people that, one, potentially didn't even know to look for you on Instagram. 2, you have people that now know the hashtag, and so when they make their decision down the line, or they want to kind of check in and see what Dartmouth is really like, they know which hashtags to look at. And so that most of our audience growth has come from us just spending time there and not being afraid to go and like stuff and to comment things. So someone commented a picture of a sunset on campus, and it was like, back at it, Dartmouth, back at it again with the gorgeous sunset. So a riff off of Damn Daniel, back at it again with the white Vans. And so we just commented a picture of the white tennis shoes and the emojis. So like, it doesn't have to be super brandy, thought out. Dartmouth is a wonderful place. Thank you for this wonderful image. It can be something that's just an emoji. We do a ton. We use the green heart and the pine tree emoji all the time because we're big green, and we're also referred to as Lone Pine. And so, perfect. That's that's an easy response. It's in my favorite emojis. I just go in and I type a bunch of those, and I just say great photo or something. And actually taking a time to look at what the image is, select what, and the caption, select what emoji fits best with it. I mean, it takes time, but it also has just wildly changed our audience on Instagram. Whereas before, we may not have gotten the same engagement because we were just posting stuff and being very one-sided. We're actually in the space as a user, and people are, but we're also there. We're not just like, here's a pretty thank you for sharing. It's okay, we're communicating with you here.
That's awesome. And so it's almost to build with that student, right? So they're connecting with another person. They're really, really into the relationship building and being seen as a person and as an individual. And so if there is, maybe they've gotten into multiple colleges and, there's real people at this school. Wow, they like my stuff. I'm connecting with another person. The entire purpose of social media is to be social. And I think far too often the marketers it's a fire hose of here's our stuff, like our stuff. And they don't really think about, well, there's another person on the other side of this. What can we do to build that friendship and to build that camaraderie and that reciprocal arrangement? So that's incredible that you're doing that in the comments. And it's clearly showing in the number of following and the rabidness of the fans that are behind it. So when you mentioned that you do this monitoring, about how much time of day is that? Is that like an hour? Is that morning, afternoon? Like, do you block time? Are you watching it organically on Instagram or through your if this then that recipes? How does that work?
So I do kind of a mix of everything. I obviously have the app on my phone, and so I'm always getting the notifications of, not always, that would be a lot of notifications, but I do check in from time to time just to check photos that we've been tagged in, because Instagram only lets you see so many notifications. So it's something that I do try to check back in regularly. I do have if this then that recipes built out just so that I can keep track of stuff. I do have one that collects all of the followers that we get on Instagram. It's not helpful as much because you don't have lost number of followers to kind of combat it with, but what you can see is just a number in a day. So like you can, as long as you're transparent about the fact, like, okay, well, I don't have a way to say we also lost 200 followers on the day we gained 500 followers, but it's still something to say, like, look at how many people are following us. Or if you do a really great post one day and then you see like 300 followers come within the next 24 hours, that's a contextual clue that used in that post was really useful. And so I really love Instagram, and it's where our current students are at. So we're very aware of that's a really important place to spend resources. However, we don't post every day. We post when we have images or when it's fitting. We've tested out the posting every day. We've tested out posting every other day. We've tested out posting at very strategic times. And we see no change usually in audience growth or amount of likes. We do like posting in the evenings because that does help with numbers. We do get more likes and engagements around that time. I think I attribute it to people studying or pretending to study between 7 and 10, and so that's a really sweet spot for us. And that took, even before we had that was just us testing. So we're like, okay, we're going to post this image at 9 tomorrow, and next image we do, we're going to try it at noon, and then at next image we would do it later in the evening, and they'd be similar photos, so it wouldn't be an image of Baker or Iconic Library, but then maybe an image of a professor and their research, which we know as an iconic image of the library. So I spend between 2 and 4 hours on Instagram, depending on the time of year, what I'm looking for. So if we're running a campaign, I'm actively on it a lot of the time. But that being said, is I set up these if this then that recipes because that's in my ideal world, is that I can just sit on Instagram throughout the day, 30-minute chunks, and go through stuff. But I know that I'm not there catching all this stuff, and I miss great things. And so that's why I have the if this then that recipes, because what that does is then maybe at the end of my day, I'm able to filter through the stuff and look what we've got and find out and just kind of check in what has happened in the time that I've been gone. Because here I do manage all of our channels, and I'm by myself, and so
Wow.
I have to be mindful of the other channels, even though I love Instagram.
That's great. So what other channels do you manage at Dartmouth other than Instagram? You mentioned Snap, but what are some of the other ones that you're on there?
Twitter, Facebook. I help with the creation and moderation of our YouTube channels, although it's a shared property around campus. And then we obviously monitor Yik Yak, and then there's some other like Dartmouth specific forums and blog forum actually that I also kind of just pay attention to. And so I do content creation for all of the channels, and monitoring, maintaining, managing, listening, responding, customer service for those channels. Snapchat is our most recent endeavor. I think a lot of people can get on board with that one. We've been slow launching it, really focusing on the prospective students on that channel. But we're going to really amp it up this next weekend for commencement to see getting current or new alumni on the channel, because they're going to be leaving campus, and we want to make sure that they stay connected to us in ways that they're there and participating on what platforms, and Snapchat is definitely, we think, going to be one of those. So we want to make sure that we get it out to them, that as they're leaving, they can stay connected to us via Snapchat.
So when you're talking about you talked about campaigns. How do you do those? Are they how do you come up with those hashtags? Are they content that you've kind of planned out, or are they just watching what's organically coming up with students? How does that work?
So we do a mix. There are some campaigns that we do every year. Dartmouth Fall is one of them. Thousands of people come to the area to leaf peep, and so it kind of just fell into our lap of, it's a beautiful season and people come here to check out the leaves anyway, so we should naturally do that. Our hashtags here are life cycle related, and so they come in as Dartmouth 16s, Dartmouth 20s, Dartmouth whatever year. That hashtag is theirs for their entire life cycle with Dartmouth. So instead of us having like Dartmouth Convocation, Dartmouth Commencement, Dartmouth Grad, it's Dartmouth 16s, Dartmouth 16s, Dartmouth 16s, from their freshman trips to their sophomore summer to their graduation to their reunions. There are event hashtags that overlay those. So we do have a Dartmouth Reunions hashtag that's from the Alumni Affairs Office that kind of captures everyone that is on campus for a reunion, because we hold several at one time. But we really started focusing on those class years, those class hashtags, because it's a really, really, really important part of the Dartmouth experience is your class here and being a part of your class, the 4 years that you're here. And so those are campaigns that kind of lended themselves to us. The ones that if you count, Dartmouth is a very long name, and there's not really a shortened version of it that has the same strength as Dartmouth as a whole. So that's something that we've struggled with. So you'll notice that our Dartmouth Homecoming hashtag is Dartmouth Homecoming, which can be frustrating because characters, which now will not be a big issue, but before it was. And so we spend a lot of time developing those and thinking about them. And what I do, I have a social media users group that I share with Sarah Maxwell Crosby and Web Services here. And we make sure that it's social media users from across campus. So it's people that are specifically charged with maintaining social channels, all the way to people who manage them as other jobs assigned, or they're the administrative assistant in an office that is now running a Twitter account or a Facebook page or a Facebook group. Wow. And then we have a higher level social media strategy committee that is made up of people that are the main institutional accounts. So athletics, alumni affairs, the library, and our professional schools. And so what those different groups allow us to do is promote these hashtags and these campaigns to a static audience. So we have an email listserv of all of these people that are members in the groups. And so every time we do a campaign, we attempt to put together some sort of social media kit that includes, depending on which group it's going to or the area that we're sending it to, the hashtag, some selected images that they can share, and some one great one that our alumni department put together was a targeted alumni campaign to welcome the recently accepted students. And so they sent out and DM'd and messaged and emailed alumni that were active on social media platforms with information and with tweets that they could send. So there's enough information for someone to, if they just want to really quickly copy and paste and send it off. But then there was also the opportunity for them to craft something more meaningful or something that maybe took a little bit more time, or ways they wanted to connect separately. And so by sending these out, we raise awareness across campus, but then we also offer up opportunities of how can you connect your department to a campaign that's happening. So graduation, we always say, do you have a ceremony for your seniors specifically for your department? Do you have a thank you party that goes off that you celebrate for the seniors that are leaving that worked in your office or was an athlete or something along those lines? And so we also grow them thinking about stuff so that they generate content for us. So it's not just me finding images that fit different things, but they're sending an image of the thank you cake to their 16s that we can also then use and say, like, dining services sends off their 16s or their soon to be graduates this today or whatever. And so that's content creation for us, and that's how we kind of get that information out there, and then ideally they create content there for us. That being said, we do have content that we create for the campaigns to get it up and running, especially if it's a new one, to kind of raise awareness. And then we have a lot of organic ones. The way our terms are identified, people just hashtagging stuff kind of fun, that's not a word, but whatever. More interestingly, so like 16 spring, so it would be hashtag 16S. And so when we have a snowy day in April, people will use hashtag 16 sorry it's still snowing or something a lot. So there's not one that kind of exists that everyone always uses for each turn, especially since the year changes, but the last initial does not. But what it lets you do is then you can play into that. And so you just kind of watch and see what people are using in their own posts. And then as a brand, you can your own or play along with that kind of campaign that happens.
That's incredible, because I think sometimes too, especially for those that are maybe in silos out there, they're toiling away at a desk all on their own. They feel like maybe they have to be in charge of everything and keep the content as a stranglehold. Or if I let other people create content, it might go left, and maybe that department's not going to create something as great. But what you guys have done it's almost like you're not running the show, you're more the orchestra director of it. So here's some good stuff, here's what we're gonna do, let me clearly explain the goals and some potential content for you. We'd love your help in doing this, but also giving them the autonomy to kind of dining services and cake, which would be, what might not be as authentic if it came from, a history department or from the main account, right? But it's super authentic because that's what dining services does. So that's a really awesome thing that you guys are doing there. And you spoke about the class groups. That just blows my mind. Like that's community within a community, right? So bonding them to each other, and then also what we try to do for, if we think about learning objectives and what we want students to get in college, they're building identity, right? They're identifying with this name, this hashtag, this identity as class of 16, and what does that mean, and being in that idea of which is so big for those of us, the student affairs, theory sort of background from it. So it's really, really cool to hear that coming from, a marketing side, and something that may not traditionally have been people who would be looking at it from that angle. And it's clearly paying off for you guys. They're doing amazing stuff there, and it's resonating with these people. It's resonating with your community, and they're giving it their time and effort, which is amazing.
Why I like the class year hashtags and why I was such a huge cheerleader for it is that it then allows people to add value to the hashtag. I think the biggest gripe that I have with hashtags and campaigns is that very little people take time to think about how they're going to give back to it. And so we ask these students to give me your content, give us the stuff that we want to see, and give us the beautiful images of campus and the really sweet sentiments when you leave. But what do we give to them on these things? Yeah, we think of it as just a tweet or just a post or just a photo, but it's still like we want them to use it. There should be an incentive. And so by having the class hashtags, we're able to also share information that way. And so, for instance, our housing department uses the class hashtags to send out reminders when certain applications are due. Our first year trips send out reminders to the incoming students of don't forget to sign up for your trip, and all of this other information that we're able to, and we're slowly growing as we learn more about timelines and dates and stuff like that, and get more people on board across campus with using these central class hashtags. Now you're providing, it's not just a place for people to share their photos that then we use for our own purposes, but also places that they can go to find fellow 20s or 19s or 18s that need a ride, that need to know when a deadline for a certain housing app is due or a certain fellowship is due. And so that's the other reason, is that so when you use Dartmouth graduation, or if you use Dartmouth grad, you can provide value to that hashtag during the ceremony and the commencement weekend. But there's a limit on the usefulness of it. And that's why I really like the class hashtags, is because we can make it useful the entire time that they're at Dartmouth and their time after, their time leading up to it, with information coming from key stakeholders on campus. So the alumni affairs that needs to send out information to their classes, or admissions who's specifically trying to reach the future 20s and 21s and 22s and 23s and all the numbers I don't want to think about. But like you see people already putting it in their profiles for prospective students who are looking. They're already saying future Dartmouth 23 or future hashtag Dartmouth 2020. And it's sweet and it's sentimental, and I don't want it to be just a marketing thing. I want it to be that community, which is why the class years lend themselves so well to it, is that we can put out information that's helpful to them and it not just be, send me your photos, send me all the things that I want from you without giving anything back to them.
That's awesome. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there, and being able to pull in all of your colleagues across campus, right? So this isn't just an admissions thing to get some more people to apply, and it's not just a department thing to push what we're doing in our department, and it's not just an alumni thing to get, keeping up alumni viewership and homecoming tickets. It's really a collaborative. You are becoming part of our family. This is a visual representation of life as part of our family. We're excited to have you. We are so excited for you to want to be here more than anything. And I would imagine it probably really does affect your campus culture when you have that collectivist, sort of sentiment across campus that everyone is excited to be at Dartmouth, right? Like this is what is happening for it. So that's so exciting. I think sometimes as people, we work in higher ed, right? Our life lives in semesters, right? And so it's the same thing. As fall is similar from fall to fall, and spring is similar from every other spring. And I think sometimes we forget that the excitement that's coming around, like we've done this for a while, we've been here 10 years, whatever. But for these people, these new freshmen coming in, this is their first and only freshman experience. They're never going to do this anywhere else again. And they've chosen to share it with us. And I think that's such a powerful reminder to think about, those sweet sentiments and how that comes to be for them, which is super exciting to watch them get excited about things. Because then I think that fires us up as well, in our jobs, right? So, it's really easy, you're at a job and you're doing this. And yes, I work for an institution, but these people are this is a lifelong dream, a culmination for them. And so, their opportunity when they set foot on campus to harness that excitement and be able to show it visually is an incredible honor and excitement. And I'm super impressed by what you guys are doing. That's just amazing. So Brian wants to know, have you guys dabbled at all? And I know we're talking about Instagram, but Facebook Live.
We have not.
To know if you've done anything with that.
We have not.
Okay.
I have a very strict rule that I do for myself, is one that I don't want to just get on something for the sake of being on a platform or using a tool. And also because I know where my resources are limited. And so while we figure it out, plus there haven't been too many opportunities that I think it would have been useful for us. With commencement coming up, we're definitely looking at the idea. But I am a one woman show, and so I hope I have enough arms, and I'd love to do a little bit of some of the events that we don't already live stream, but we have not gotten the chance to do it. Although I highly recommend video on Facebook in general. We can put one Facebook video up live or pre-recorded or whatever, and it outperforms every single piece of content on our page. And it just shows you that video is king right now on Facebook, and so it's totally worth the investment if you're looking into it.
That's awesome. Brian, I hope that answers your question in there. That's amazing. So we have a couple minutes left. I think we've caught everybody's question who was interested. Is there anything else, maybe some best practices or quick, if people are thinking about, they're hearing this is where students are now, they are on Instagram, they're not on Facebook, right? We're hearing all these trends. What would you recommend, maybe your top 3 things for people who are thinking about getting on Instagram or they're managing an Instagram? What are your big takeaways for them?
I think the number one thing that you want to do is get on and start looking at it, whether it's creating a personal account or creating your institutional account and not promoting it. Or even if you already have one, take some time and spend time in the space. Follow the accounts that are top promoted, or the ones that you see a lot of references to. Look up some influencers for your specific demographics, and just make sure that that you're spending time in this space, because it's really what I find more and more interesting about the younger generations is that they're really good at calling you out on not being true, or not being authentic, and so they can smell a fake from like a mile away. And so that's why I'm so adamant about spending time in the space and understanding it, because they may not say like, oh, this is totally lame. They might just not come to your page. They may not like your photos. They may not engage with your content. So really set aside some time to learn and be in the space just as a lurker, just as someone testing things out on your personal account, trying out different hashtags, looking for community hashtags that you might be interested in following personally, and just learn the space. And then the second thing is making sure that you're there and engaging with your community. Once they start coming and start paying attention, don't just leave it at that. Make sure you're paying attention to them and that you do set aside time, even if it's just 30 minutes a day, to like X amount of posts, or to make sure you're going through and checking things out. And the other thing is I'm not afraid to follow people on accounts. I see a lot of main accounts that will not have a ton of followers. They will have followed like 10 people, and it's all institutionally related accounts. I very much treat followers on Instagram and on Twitter. Instagram, you have less organizational possibility. On Twitter, I organize everyone that I follow, so I know exactly where they fall into what category and what audience, in case I need a piece from a current student, prospective student, whatever, so that I can see that that information separated out. But on Instagram, it's where you're collecting the people that really influence your brand, and there are students that are living on campus. There are professors that hold classes that are specifically Instagram related or social media related. So don't be afraid to follow people, and make sure that you follow people that are related or producing content that is useful to you. A lot of the times I see people follow just everyone that's using the hashtag, or follow no one. And so you don't want to be on either side of that spectrum. You really want to use your followers extremely strategically to understand and to find content. So one, it makes your job easier if you're a one-person show and you're looking for content all the time. Or two, it just gives you a sense of the climate on campus, what's happening. If everyone posts a picture of a beautiful sunset on campus, you know that it was a beautiful sunset on campus. And so you can think like, oh, well, that'll be a great way to tap into current students. Everyone was outside taking a picture, and you can say something along the lines of, wow, did you guys catch that sunset last night? Here's our favorite shot from the evening. And then you show that to alumni who remember their time and the beautiful sunsets that happened on campus, and you show prospective students how beautiful your campus really can be, or the cool event that's happening, or insert event that you've covered here. So those are the 3 things. Spend time in the space. I don't remember what my second one is because I blanked on it. I know the third one was following people, engaging. And so just making sure that you're actually not just there to push stuff out, that you are watching and looking at what people are sharing.
That's awesome. I think that's absolutely like the biggest 3 pillars as well. and you have to understand the platform before you're on there, right? Especially to be able to understand how emojis work and really understanding internet culture. I think
Yes.
if you don't understand what makes a joke or why something isn't funny to certain platforms, and that may be harder for those of us who are a little bit older, who are like, wait, what is this new vernacular and slang? But you know, we're surrounded by students. They'll tell us, right?
Yep. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to use Urban Dictionary.
That is a great example. That is a great hint.
I call students my gut check. I'm like, is this stupid? Yes or no? And they say no or yes, and then if I'm like, well, what does this? Because the other thing is there's a lot of emojis that have other meanings to them, and so I just always like to double check that. And I'm a heavy user of emojis, so I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the really pop culturally ones. But if I start using a new one, I always make sure to like do a quick like, okay, what does this one actually mean? Puppy face looks friendly enough, but who knows? It could mean something else. I don't know. It doesn't. Though. I use it all the time.
And I think that's amazing for marketers to really understand, you know, how this works, right? What are these subcultures that are attracting students? And every platform is going to have a different one, right? The vibe on Snapchat is going to be way different than the vibe maybe on Tumblr or here on Instagram, and what's going to resonate with your viewers. So that's been amazing. If you could, for Brian, he would really like to see your recipes again. So in like maybe the minute we have left, can you share those again, or on the Google Plus page, we'll have those links for everybody.
Yes, I can definitely post. There's a ton of great articles out there that I think like HubSpot does some. If you use any sort of social media management tool, even if it's free, like Hootsuite or Buffer or something, they seem to all have a blog that's like the 10 best if this then that recipes that you use. And actually, I can show you really easily navigate one. So you set up an account, and so let's click if this. So let's do. Actually, we'll just search because it'll be easier. Twitter. So if something happens on tweet, so here's all your options. So let's say you just want to build out a sheet of the tweets that you send or something. Or you want to build out a sheet of the new followers. Why does this keep happening?
I think we froze. Did we freeze?
Oh, am I still here?
Oh, now we're back. Okay.
Okay. And so you can see, you can set up anything. So let's say new tweet with me, or hold on, where's the good one that I like using? New tweet from search. This is my favorite. So this is one that you can use the regular search operators on. So if you want to look for a certain hashtag, but you know it's super popular, so like let's say you want to do a hashtag study break and you know that everyone's doing it, you can use the same search parameter. So anytime someone mentions at Dartmouth and study break or something along those lines, so like if I do our Dartmouth 16s, we create a trigger, then that, and so this is where I select drive. So I put it in a new spreadsheet, and so then it gives me, so add a row to a spreadsheet. I can do new tweet from Dartmouth 16s. And then what it does here is you can change what stuff is here. Like you can select your ingredient. I love how legitimately they go for the recipe thing here. But so here they usually pick ones that are actually super helpful. So you have username, text, linked tweet, created at. So that's pretty much everything that I could ever want from a tweet. But if I wanted a tweet embed code or the username URL, so a link to their actual profile, I could add that. But this is enough for me. And so it'll create a folder. In this folder, I already have set up on my drive. And so every time someone tweets that it'll create a spreadsheet line in that spreadsheet that I've just built using if this, then that. I wish I would have been using it more because there's so many things that you can use for it. I use it for Bitly now, and it tracks all of my UTM tracking codes. So the codes that we set up to share what campaigns or when I'm sharing stuff on social, it builds it out for me. So instead of hand building that information, it just plops it into a spreadsheet for me. I'm like, why did I not know this existed before? So I'm constantly learning stuff. But the number one suggestion that I say for looking for recipes is to Google like top 10 recipes for a social media marketer or top 10 recipes for social media on a if this and that, because it changes your life and it's free.
free is amazing because we're all working higher ed, right? The budget is a real thing. We'll have to do another whole webinar on if this then that recipes maybe. But thank you so much, Erin. This has been amazing. Super excited to spend lunchtime with you today and be able to talk to people. I'm sure our viewers loved it as well. Again, for anybody who is interested in this, the replay is going to be available on YouTube. Same link. Comment, share. Hopefully we provided some value for you today. And let us know what you want to see next time. I'm sure we've only just scratched the surface of the possibilities of Instagram, and we could talk all afternoon on it. But what do you want to hear? What can we provide you? What are some trainings that might be helpful for you as a social media manager at your university? Let us know. Please comment, tweet us, hashtag SM for higher ed. Nobody else is using that yet, so we're going to steal it and use it for everything. Follow Erin. She's amazing. Follow Dartmouth Instagram. Get some great ideas. Huh?
So I need one more follower to get a certain number that I want. So
awesome. So
the other thing is
out and follow her stuff. Get some great ideas for your campus. And thank you so much for joining this edition of Higher Ed Social's webinar series. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon. Happy weekend.